Today I'm sharing how I transformed this children's thrift dresser into a mature adult dresser using just 3 things. I'm also sharing how to get a super spray-like finish without using a sprayer. Hi, I'm Denise from Salvaged Inspirations, and welcome back to my furniture painting DIY decor channel. Let's get started. Here's the previously painted dresser I started with. It was selling at my local restore for $40 with 50% off. The young men who loaded it into my vehicle commented on how desperately it needed some TLC. And yes, you could tell this dresser was well used and well loved. It had dings, scratches. There was a significant missing piece on the corner of the drawer which needed repairing. And you can tell that it's not a solid piece of wood furniture. However, it touched my heart that somebody had painted and then repainted this a good few times. So it really has been well loved. I started by removing all the old hardware. I gave it a really good cleaning with my spray bottle mixed with White Lightning, which is a powder. I mix a tablespoon into this spray bottle and then just add the water and give it a shake. It's a very economical way to do it rather than buying the TSP already mixed and in spray form. I made sure to give the inside of the body of this dresser a really good wipe down, and then I started working on the drawers. And here you can clearly see that it is not a solid wood piece and that I'm working with plywood or plyboard. After everything was all clean and dry, I brought out my all-purpose Bondo putty to start the repairs and start fixing all these little dings and scratches on this piece. I have a full tutorial and step-by-step post on how to use Bondo for furniture repairs, which I'll include in the description down below. Also, I've been asked in some of the comments where to get the supplies that I'm using. I always include links in the description below. So if you ever want to try one of these products or one of these paint colors, they're always included down below for you. I gave the Bondo a really good mixing. I like using it in smaller portions, maybe a golf ball size of Bondo, and then I add about a pea size of the hardener. And then you mix it all together. And the great thing about Bondo, and I always say this, the fabulous thing about Bondo is it dries super fast and you're ready to sand and prime usually within a half hour. The bad thing about Bondo is it dries super fast and you have to work really quickly with it because within 5 minutes it will start setting and it will start stiffening up and it's impossible to work with at that point. That's why I do mix small batches because I don't want it to go to waste. I remember when I first started using Bondo, I would mix quite a bit and then half of it would just have to go into the garbage because it was unusable. I went ahead and filled all the hardware holes. And then I tackled this big chip off the corner. And what I used was a paint stick and a clamp to create a ledge for the Bondo to sit on. Using the plastic putty knife, I added the Bondo into the missing wood and I just kept on layering it up and smoothing it out, then layering it up and smoothing it out. It is not going to look good the first time around because this is a significant piece missing and it really needs to be built up. The funny thing about furniture painting, as in many things in life, it's always the prep that takes the longest. If you want a really good looking, professionally painted piece of furniture for your home or for sale, you're going to spend a lot of time on the prep, and then the painting seems to go quite quickly. Because I know when I first started painting furniture, I thought it was the other way around. I thought that, oh, okay, you prep up the piece and then you spend a lot of time painting it, making it look pretty. No, to make it look pretty, you have to put in all the prep work first. So as you can see, it does not look pretty at all. This repair looks really shabby, and it did take 3 times in total to actually smooth everything out and give it a really good solid corner. To sand the first round smooth, I went in with an orbital sander, and I believe it was an 80 grit on this. It was fairly aggressive, and that's just to sand down all the excess hardened Bondo on the piece. It's also fun to see what colors furniture has been painted in, because once I started sanding it down, I saw that it had been painted white, pink, and it looked like a canary yellow. So this has been painted a good few times previously. And this enabled me not to switch the 80 grit. I just used that 80 grit to go over everything because I really wanted and needed to smooth down all this paint that had been put on it before. And here you can see on the edge just how thick this paint actually was. To further finesse this corner and to remove some of the paint on the side, I brought out my palm sander and I did a lower grit here. It was a 120 on this palm sander, and here I'm creating the corner. So I just want to hold it at a 90-degree angle so it's perfectly flat, and therefore the Bondo gets shaved right down, and it's going to start looking like a corner once it starts being built up. Also, I had to sand down that thick paint as well. And here's what this drawer looks like, all sanded smooth, and it is not pretty. It looks like a rainbow of colors, but this is going to give us a really, really smooth paint finish now. I just want to mention that when you're painting previously painted furniture, you do not have to sand down to bare wood. You just have to make sure that everything's sanded super smooth. It will not look pretty, as you can see, but this is the prep that you need for repainting previously painted furniture. While I had my palm sander handy, I also went and sanded inside the drawers just to clean up any of the paint overspill that had been there. I brought everything back into my paint room and gave everything a really good once over, making sure everything was smoothed out perfectly. Then I went ahead and applied BIN shellac-based primer. I like applying a coat of primer prior to filling all the scratches and the dings and the gouges, etc. I mean, the big visible ones, of course, I started with, but then what I do is I go ahead, I apply one coat of primer, and then everything is very visible to me. It's easy to see what needs filling. It also helps with any bleed through or stain blockage because BIN shellac-based primer is shellac-based, so you do need very good ventilation when you're working with this because there is an odor. But it's awesome stuff. I have a full video on how to apply BIN or BIN shellac-based primer, which I will also include in the description box down below. You may be wondering why I'm using BIN in this case rather than the bonding boss that I have been using, which is water-based, that has no odor. And the reason is timing. When I have time to use the bonding boss, that needs 24 hours to set and work its magic. And you don't have to worry about any fumes. You don't have to worry about any sort of cleanup. I mean, it's awesome. Or any sort of bonding primer that's water-based, you usually have to wait longer. Whereas with this shellac-based primer, it's a bonding primer, sticks to everything, and you can actually prime and paint all within an hour. It dries super, super fast. After the first coat of primer was on the entire piece, I went back and started building up that corner again. Once again, I clamped on the paint stick, mixed up my Bondo, and then started applying it to create a solid corner. I left that to dry, and then I went back in and looked at all the little scratches and divots that needed filling. Since I had the Bondo already mixed, I just used the Bondo to do so. And there was a lot to fill, especially along the corners and edges of this piece. And it was just rinse and repeat. And this was 3 times. So once the Bondo had dried, again, I brought it into my sanding room and started sanding everything smooth. Once everything was sanded, I brought it back into my paint room, used a tack cloth to remove all the dust, and then repeated the process again. Woo! That was a prep, but now for the fun part. So as I mentioned, I wanted to turn this children's dresser into a more mature piece of furniture. And I really wanted the color to stand out, to be a bold, stand on its own color. And I chose Sequoia. Sequoia is a red, which I don't work with a whole lot, but it's an earthy red. It's kind of a muted red, so it has a very mature look to it, not like candy apple red. Another reason why I chose Sequoia in the silk all-in-one mineral paint is just that it's all in one. So it has the primer and the top coat built in. So for this piece, I did not have the extra step of top coating. To get a super smooth spray-like finish without using a sprayer, I used my brush and roll paint technique. And this is very easy to do. I take a paintbrush and I apply the paint onto a drawer. For instance, what I'm working with here, I apply a nice coat, making sure that all the sides and all the grooves and everything are covered 100%. And then I take this inexpensive smooth roller and I roll over the wet paint with the dry roller. I do not add any paint to the roller. Which was a great question Celia asked over on Salvaged Inspirations, the SI blog. You guys are amazing because you catch everything. I'm actually going to point out something else that one of the readers picked up on as well. The pressure I apply with this roller also varies. For instance, this first coat, I can apply a little bit more pressure because it's not the final coat. So this, I'm just spreading the paint with this smoothed out roller and just smoothing everything out. And I go ahead and do this on all the surfaces. And I work in sections. I don't paint the whole piece with my paintbrush and then go back, because you want, when you're using the roller to smooth out the paint that you just applied with the paintbrush, you want it still very wet. So you do it immediately after it's applied. And just as when you're painting with a paintbrush, the first coat will look horrendous. It will not look pretty, but that's okay. Especially with the red, it usually takes 2 or 3 coats to get full coverage. I don't know why red is one of those colors that need additional coats. In this case, it only took 2, which I was super happy with. But yeah, usually red, 2 or 3 coats to get full coverage, and your first coat will look a little scary. As I mentioned in a few other videos, I also like leaving the top until last, because this gives me time to practice whatever technique I'm using on a piece of furniture. And the top and the front of the drawers are always the very most visible, so I like leaving the top to very last. Once I had brushed on a nice coat of the Sequoia on the top, again, I went in with the roller, and this just smooths everything out beautifully. This silk all-in-one mineral paint also is a self-leveling paint. So if you notice that you have a tiny little bit of texture from the roller as you're rolling it out, need not worry, it all self-levels very nicely. I let the first coat of Sequoia dry fully, and then I came back. I think it was about 4 or 5 hours later. I was doing something upstairs. Then I came back and I repeated the process with my second coat. I also wanted to point out that for the second coat, the roller is a very, very light touch. I do not apply a lot of pressure with the roller at all. And here I am painting the drawer with the repair, with the corner repair. Can you see where it is? After the 2 coats of paint were 100% dry, I came back the next morning and added these legs, which I found on Amazon. I lined them up with the boards perfectly, and then I drilled in some pilot holes. These furniture legs are super cute and interesting because they go up the side of the piece, which I'll share in a moment, but they do not come with screws, so you do need your own screws. I also purchased these handles, black matching handles off Amazon as well, and using my hardware template, I measured to make sure everything was center. And then used my template to mark where the holes, the hardware holes needed to be. And I bought this template off Amazon for, I believe it's $5 or $6. It is very inexpensive and super simple to use. Once the holes were all marked out, and I always measure twice and drill once, then I go ahead and I drill the holes for the hardware and install. And this hardware does come with the screws. It comes with breakaway screws, so you can adjust for the thickness of the drawer, and it also comes with the regular screw as well. And that tied up this makeover because it does not need a top coat, as the top coat is already included in the paint. But before I share the after, I just wanted to point out something. Have you noticed something different about this dresser? Because Susie B on the SI blog certainly did. The drawers have been changed, and I'm curious if you think the groove in the drawer was meant to be up top, or was it meant to be on the bottom as it was when I originally found it? I'm guessing the top, and that's why I switched it up. I much prefer the look, but I'm curious as to your thoughts. So just as a reminder, here's the before. And here's the after. And I do think that she was turned into a child's dresser who was very well loved, well used. I'm guessing maybe for a couple of siblings, because this dresser's been around for a while, and it's now been turned into a more mature, sophisticated adult dresser. I am super pleased with the color and the way the legs and the hardware complement the color nicely, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I hope this thrift dresser transformation has inspired you. If you gained any value from this video, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, and also share with any of your creative friends. I also love hearing your comments down below. I read each and every one of them, and I appreciate your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions on future videos, something you'd like to learn or something you'd like to see, I'd love to hear that as well. You can also find me over at salvagedinspirations.com, where I have over 600 furniture painting DIY tutorials. And be sure to sign up for that email list. It's free, it goes right into your inbox, and you get everything that's current. Until next project, have a fabulous week. Bye, guys.